Hi, this is Mark Laughlin with the Ambidextrous Gunfighter, here with our continuing education series on the KelTec RDB and Bravo Company RECCE AR15. Now, this is a test to see one thing I've noticed with this rifle and some earlier testing was that if I zero this for a 55 grain round, then when I go to a 62 grain or a 75 grain bullet, the point of impact is significantly different. It's like if I zero it at 25 meters for the 55 grain, then when I switch to say a 75 grain, it was, let's see, 4 inches low. So that's a 16-minute of angle difference between the two bullet weights. And my hypothesis is that that's due to the harmonics of the pencil barrel. And if that's correct, then I should expect to see the BCM RECCE with its I think it's a medium profile barrel, it's a heavier barrel. I suspect that it will actually, especially at 25 meters, I'm pretty much going to put all those shots pretty close to each other consistently, regardless of bullet weight. Now, of course, going out to say 300 or 400 yards, the heavier bullet with its better aerodynamic profile, like the 75 grain, is actually a hollow point boat tail. So its aerodynamics are going to be a little bit better and more stable than the 55 grain. These are both 1-in-7 twist rifles, and so I think, as I understand it, for 1-in-7 twist, the heavier bullet's going to be a little bit better. Now, normally I have not detected before that there was a difference at short range as far as the point of impact versus when you're zeroed. So, well, first I've got the 400-yard targets, the simulated 400-yard targets from Project Appleseed set up. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically cycle, put the left column will be the RDB, and the far right column will be the AR. And so I'll fire, say, 5 rounds of each bullet weight, and we'll see what the groups look like, how they compare. So let's start with the AR, and I'm going to use a sling. It's kind of, I mean, as far as accuracy, it's kind of not going to be fair. The AR has a ACOG on it, and it's like it's really accurate, and I'm going to be using a sling, so I'm giving the AR all the advantage, but this is not so much an accuracy test, it's just to see that if there's a variability in the zero from different bullet weights. Get the sling on proper. I'm going to put 5 rounds into that top target. That's 55 grain. We're starting with 55 grain. Okay, definitely looks like it's zeroed. So now we'll switch to the 65 grain. And for the AR, since I think it's going to be pretty much the same, I'm going to move down to the second target just so we can differentiate between the ammo. Okay, there's a 65 grain, or 62 grain I think it is actually. And now 75 grain. And as far row of targets, third one from the top. Shanked those two. Okay, now I get this sling off, and we'll switch to the RDB. Now, like I said, the RDB is kind of at a disadvantage, running just a red dot. So this is more not to compare the accuracy between the two rifles. BCM is no doubt very accurate. And any inaccuracy you see on the target, once we show you that, it's definitely me, because I'm kind of rushing through this. I'm more concerned about just seeing if the zero's changing, and we'll be able to tell, you know, even if my groups are a little bit not exactly super tight. But so let's start with the 55 grain on the RDB. We'll do a zero check, and I'm going to actually shoot at the well, I'll start at the top just like we did before, so keep it in order. You know, this rifle is actually a little heavier, but when you pick it up, it feels lighter just because of the balance. And I do a different shooting. I don't use my Project Appleseed shooting style with the bullpup. I'm not sure if this is the best way to do it, but it seems that if I bring the butt stock more to the center of my body and elbows angled out, kind of like a bipod, that seems to gauge almost as good as with the sling. Yeah, those targets just disappear by my red dot. Okay, there's 5 rounds of 55 grain. I notice the trigger is quite a bit better on the RDB. I think I might have shanked a couple of those, kind of expecting a little more of the BCM has a great trigger, it's just heavier, but the RDB is a very light trigger. And now the 75 grain. All right, let's go have a look. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. Right here is the AR. There's the 55 grain, 62 grain, and 75 grain. Oh, I mean a little bit to the right, but still no significant change in elevation. Here's the RDB. There's 55 grain. Here is the 62 grain. Drop down, looks like about 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 minute of angle. And then I was aiming at this for the 75 grain, and it's actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And it looks like maybe almost 10 minute of angle lower. It looks like I'm hitting this one, but I was actually shooting for that. So whereas with the 55 grain I'm dead on pretty much. I mean, the group is me, not the rifle. 75 grain, it's about 10 minute of angle off or low. And so now the next test is I'm going to remove the flash hider from the RDB, and we're going to do another same thing with the RDB but without the flash hider. I want to see if the flash hider is having an effect on that pencil thin barrel. Okay, so now we have the RDB with just the barrel muzzle, a bare barrel. I remove the flash hider and the lock nut, and now we'll run through the same. We'll start with the 55 grain, 65 or 62 grain, and 75 grain rounds, and we'll see if removing the flash hider makes things a little more consistent between the bullet weights. Okay, so I re-zeroed the Burris Fastfire 2 red dot for the 55 grain with no flash hider on my barrel. And so now we'll cycle through 5 rounds each of 55 grain, 65 grain, or 62 grain, and 75 grain. And I'll start, I'll shoot, I got a fresh target up. And let's see if we get a little more consistency between the bullet weights, at least at 25 meters. Yeah, 65 grain. And 75 grain. Okay, now for the exciting conclusion of our bare muzzle test, and see how this turns out. All right, so there's my 55 grain. Got one flyer. I have to really watch that trigger when I'm working the reset. It's really light when you work the reset. Here's the 62 grain. And then here's the 75 grain. A little bit to the left. But other than the flyer there, I think that 55 grain actually has the tightest groups here, but I'm still like, that trigger is like, the reset is really, really light. I got to get used to that. But I mean, definitely you can see that no big elevation change for the 0. A little bit off to the left, and that may very well have been me. I think my position maybe wasn't quite the same on the 75 grain, but still, we don't have that huge change in elevation. You know, it was like 5 and 10 minutes of angle different from the 55 grain when we had that flash hider on. So I think if you want to run a flash hider and you want this RDB to be consistent from, you know, various loads, whether it's 55, 62, or 75 grain or heavier, I think either you probably should get the heavier barrel if you want to run a flash hider, or if you want to run the pencil barrel like I've got here, then don't run any muzzle devices. I'm guessing probably the flash hider, muzzle brakes, suppressors are probably going to just throw things all a kilter between bullet weights. It's just something to do with that, I guess, the dynamics of the barrel whip when the different weight bullets are going through it, I guess. I'm shocked that it makes that big a difference, but apparently the flash hider has something to do with that extra weight out on the muzzle. Don't have that with the AR, which has a heavier barrel. It runs a flash hider. There's basically no difference between the different weights of ammo. So I think it's a combination of barrel diameter and a flash hider. So anyway, that's just my hypothesis. Some of the testing here bears it out a bit, but do your own testing. Just thinking though that if I wanted to run a muzzle device, I'd probably go with a heavier barrel. If you're okay without running a muzzle device, then nothing wrong with the pencil barrel. Looks like it's certainly capable of good accuracy. You know, they're probably going to heat up a little more, you know, whereas the heavier barrel will dissipate heat better. But you do gain, of course, without that extra weight, you gain some mobility. You know, it's a little bit quicker handling, and that's one of the features I really, really like about the RDB. So maybe we'll have to get a RDB with a heavier barrel and give it a try and see how that does, and if we find the handling to be adversely affected compared to the pencil barrel. But I like the handling of the RDB so much with this pencil barrel. I'm a little bit concerned that if I put a heavier barrel on, I might not like that. Might not like the handling as much. But you know, it depends on your use. Anyway, test results. Hope you enjoyed the video. Mark Laughlin with the Ambidextrous Gunfighter. Please like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.